Create enriching experiences beyond the classroom through ACSI Student Leadership and Learning with Emily Pigott.
Well, hello and welcome to the Student Leadership and Learning podcast, where we journey together to influence and equip today's students to lead with intentionality and purpose. Well, I am your host, Emily Pigott, and I am so glad you are here today, because today we are diving into something that I believe has the power to change how we lead, how we actually help our students. You know, when we think about leadership, we often think of big picture things like vision and strategy and influence and success. And while these things are important, they don't tell the whole story. True, authentic, world-changing leadership isn't built on charisma. It's not built upon the person who is up front and in charge. And this is what we need to debunk with our students. It's built on something that only Christ can form in us. The deeper things of faith, of hope, and how to love and care for others. So whether you're leading in your classroom, a school, maybe you're a school leader, maybe you just have a team of students that you lead, or perhaps a coach, or maybe you're just beginning to wonder how to shape future influencers. This episode is for you. So let's explore the kind of leader who changes the world. So let's start with hope. One of the most powerful verses in the Bible is Jeremiah 29:11, and it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord." We're very familiar with this verse. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a future and a hope. That sounds so encouraging, right? But here's what some people miss. This promise wasn't given in a moment of triumph. It wasn't a moment where those that this verse was speaking to, where they were experiencing freedom and peace. It was given to God's people while they were living in exile. They were held captive in Babylon. Everything familiar and safe, it had been taken away. And in that place of struggle, Jeremiah brings them God's words of hope. Think about your students today. Think about them in their moment of struggle and how hope can be so freeing for them. So in this verse, he tells them, don't just wait for a rescue. Don't just seek to find the way out of the challenge that you're in right now, but seek the peace and prosperity of the city that they had been carried into exile. Jeremiah tells them, while you're in the stuff, while you're in the hard place, pray for that. He tells these people, pray for the city of Babylon. Pray for the place that you are being held in exile. And what did he say to pray? Pray that it prospers. Because when it prospers, you will too. That's so powerful. And it means that even when our situation is difficult or uncomfortable, God is still calling us to invest, to build, to hope right where we are. And as educators, we can model this for our students. We can teach them that leadership isn't about waiting for ideal conditions, because you'll be waiting a really long time. It's about being faithful now. So next up, faith. I love thinking about faith as something that believes in the unseen. So Hebrews 11:1, we're familiar with this verse as well. Faith is the confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. And I love how Mark Batterson puts it. He says, faith is taking the first step before God reveals the second. It's putting God between us and our circumstances that are causing us anxiety or stress or worry or concern. And there's an Indiana Jones movie, a very old movie, but he comes to the edge of what looks like a cavern, and he needs to get to the other side, because on the other side is the continuation of the quest that he's on. But he's looking at this cavern, and there seems to be no way across. And so he was thinking back to something that he had read that indicated to him, you might have to take a step of faith before you will have the path revealed to you. And so he steps out in what looks like there's no path in front of him. He steps out, and when he steps out, his perspective changes. And he can now see what he couldn't see before, and the path that was camouflaged because of how it integrated into the other side of the cavern. It's an incredible example of faith enabling us to lead with vision, even when the path ahead is unclear. So let me share a story with you. I love science. I love botany. I love anything that God has created. So I was intrigued when I was reading recently an article that talked about the invention of the microscope. And we know that happened in the late 15 to 1600s. And there's a couple of different people that have been acclaimed to have the invention. But Antonia van Leeuwenhoek began to see things that the naked eye couldn't, because he developed a microscope that could magnify beyond what the regular eye could see. And he discovered that there were entire worlds hidden in a drop of water, or in bacteria, or in cells, or in structures that no one knew existed. What if we could lead like this? What if we could look beyond what's visible and see the potential in our students that no one else sees? What if we believed in them before they even believed in themselves? And what I'm saying, I know is not easy. I know this generation presents challenges, but quite honestly, we did too when we were their age. It's different, but yet some elements aren't different. So what if we found that way to believe and convey that belief to our students? This is what faith-filled leadership looks like. It means zooming in and getting close and discovering the beauty God has placed in others, even if it takes time and patience. And this reminds me of something else that I read recently. My favorite flower, if you were to ask me, a random fun fact about me, is the orchid. I love the orchid because it comes in all shapes, sizes, colors. If you can imagine it, you can find that color in an orchid. But the interesting thing about an orchid is that its seed is so tiny. It's almost invisible. So if you are dusting your house and the dust kind of plumes up into the sunlight and you can see those tiny flecks of dust, that's about the size of an orchid seed. And interestingly enough, it doesn't have nutrients inside of it. It requires another organism, a type of fungus, to help it grow. But when it does, when the fungus and that tiny dust-like seed gets together, it becomes something stunning. And in one orchid seed pod, there are millions and millions of seeds. So in other words, when those seeds get out, and if that fungus, that microorganism is in place, orchids can permeate an entire area. One orchid can change the landscape. Or one orchid pod, one seed pod with millions of things in it can change an entire landscape. Think about our students. If they're inexperienced and they don't recognize their potential and they aren't confident in the skills that they have, what if we come alongside them and we give them that experience, that belief, that knowledge, that hope, that faith? Imagine how they can change the entire landscape. Then there's the coca de mora seed. Now, if I find out what one of the smallest seeds are, I want to know now what the largest seed is, and it belongs to the coca de mora tree. So think of a very large palm tree. It is the largest seed in the world. How big is it? It's a little bit smaller than a standard size basketball. It can weigh up to 60 pounds. It's heavy. It's purposeful. When you hold a coca de mora seed, you know that the plant that's going to come out of this is going to be massive. And interestingly enough, I'm from Florida. The tree that stands when our hurricanes come through, when we get a Cat 4 and a Cat 5, it's not the sturdy, beautiful oak trees. I have seen them fall over like they are branches and twigs. No, it's the palm tree. The palm tree. So this coca de mora seed is what produces that palm tree. So now think of our students. Some of them you can already see, they just exude confidence and God-given potential. Those students still need us. They still need us to come alongside and help refine them with that same hope and that same faith in their beliefs. Because here's the truth: leadership looks like both the tiny orchid seed, and it also looks like the large and mighty and magnificent coco de Mor seed. Some students feel small, unsure, like they have nothing to offer, and others feel heavy with the responsibility that goes along with the gifts that they know they've been given, and the big dreams that come with that. But no matter the size of the gift, what matters most is the condition of their heart. With God, both kinds of seeds can grow into something world changing. So I've heard many leadership teachers say things like, let's change the world, or dream big dreams and then make them happen. Love it. That's a champion. That's somebody that gets up and it's a motivational speaker. But what I believe we need to focus on is the kind of leader the world needs to actually change the world. See, it's less about the leader and more about what the world actually needs. So what does it really take to change the world through leadership? What kind of leader does the world need? Authenticity, selflessness, and a leader that has Christ-like love. So let's unpack that a little bit. Authenticity, that's leading without a mask. Students today feel enormous pressure to perform, to be the confident one, the perfect one, the one who never messes up. And let's be real, we as adults struggle with that too. To have the perfect life, to, when we go on vacation and we put it on social media and everything beautiful and wonderful happened, but nobody knew that, one shoe was left at home and the luggage was lost, and the passport was lost and the flight was delayed 4 times, and you're all cramped into one hotel room that only had a king size or a queen size bed. We don't put that out there. But true leadership begins when we lead from truth, not performance. We need to not be afraid to say, I don't know. So here's a potential activity that you can do with your students. Talk with your students about mask traits, those traits that we put on to hide maybe some areas of weakness, versus mirror traits. So a mask will hide our weakness. A mirror reflects the truth. It reflects what we ultimately are dealing with. A mask is always right, never vulnerable. They're busy so that they can seem impressive. Where a mirror is honest, humble, admits mistakes, serves without the spotlight. Brainstorm these things with your students. Role play this. Ask them to create scenarios. Let them see masks and mirrors for what they are, because that's going to help them make the change in their lives. The next would be selfishness. It's serving, sorry, not selfishness, selflessness. There you go. Let's get that part right. It's serving when it costs something. Philippians 2:3-4 says, do nothing out of selfish ambition, rather in humility, value others above yourselves. Perhaps you spot a student that stays after class to straighten the chairs, or someone that sees someone sitting by themselves at lunch. We use these as examples a lot, but they're still students sitting by themselves at lunch. It is the most horrific thing that can ever take place under our leadership as adults. We've got to put some things in place that we can enable our student leaders to lead from a place of selflessness. That no recognition, no spotlight, just quiet service. That's leadership. And then Christ-like love. That goes even deeper than the two things that we've talked about already. John 13:34 says, love one another as I have loved you. And we know that Christ's life for us is he laid down his life for us. So you must love one another. So think of, love the story of the Good Samaritan. We know it well. But this person crossed boundaries. He went across division. He went across pain. And he met a person in their place of need. What would our schools look like if every student leader lived this way? Why don't you start your school year reading the passage of the Good Samaritan, then ask that question. What would our schools look like if every student leader lived this way? See what your students come up with. Because when it's their idea, they are motivated to get it done. And see, love, just like math is a universal language, it doesn't matter where you are around the globe, 2 + 2 is 4. It is. It's an absolute truth from God. God is a God of order. 2 + 2 is 4. Guess what else is universal? Love. Love is the foundation. It's the action behind every lasting kind of leadership. When we lead from a place of Christ-like love, our leadership will be incredibly impactful. So let's bring all of this together. To lead in a way that shapes culture and impacts the world, we must create in our students and in ourselves leaders who have hope for tomorrow, leaders who lead by faith and not fear, and who love with courage and compassion. So what kind of seed are you today? What kind of seed are your students? Are you hidden like the orchid? Maybe your students are hidden like the orchid, or maybe they're heavy with purpose like the coco de More. Either way, God wants to grow something powerful in you, and he wants to grow something powerful in your students. So here's the challenge. Be authentic. We've closed this school year, we're looking ahead to next school year. We dream big dreams in the summer. Be authentic. Take off the mask. Let your students see the real you in all of your inadequacies, because the Lord is the one that gifts us. I'm not saying to air all of your life complexities. Actually, please don't do that. Don't burden your students with that. What I'm saying is, when you make a mistake, own it. When you present a test to them and you accidentally included a section that doesn't apply and you didn't teach and you forgot to take it off, I have seen teachers go, well, you should have known that. That all that does is push a wedge with your students and drive them away. So let's own it. Let's be authentic. Let's be selfless. Let's serve when no one is looking. I mean, that's the heart of an educator, quite honestly. We go into this field, why? Because we love people and we want to serve. That's why we're educators. That's why we're school leaders. We care deeply about impacting and equipping people to be better versions of themselves. And of course, be loving. Lead with Christ-like compassion. Because when we lead as Jesus did, with faith, with hope, with love, we don't just lead well. We actually do change the world. So thanks for joining me today on the Student Leadership and Learning Podcast. If you found this episode helpful, and I sure hope you did, share it with a fellow educator, share it with a school leader. Let's be about the business of equipping our students to lead with intentionality and purpose. Don't forget to subscribe for more practical tips, biblical insights on leadership. Until next time, remember, great leaders don't just follow trends. We actually create them. So let's keep leading with love, faith, and vision, and inspiring others to do the same. Because remember, what you do matters every moment, every day. You are a difference maker, and our students are worth it. We'll see you next time.
Student Leadership and Learning is a presentation of the Association of Christian Schools International. Create enriching experiences beyond the classroom by visiting acsi.org/studentleadership.